I want to bring in my colleague, Jake Traylor, White House reporter for MS Now. Okay, you've got new reporting, Jake, on how exactly Vance became the face of these public talks, even though he was the one, supposedly, who opposed this war.
Stephanie, that's right. The largest dissenter inside the White House was Vice President Vance. Cut to now, he is the face, the lead of the negotiations. How did that happen? That's what our reporting, my colleague David Rhodes and I got into here. A couple of pretty notable things. One, I was told by a White House official that initially Rubio sort of strategically sidestepped this role as the lead of negotiations. This official told me that Rubio had the foresight and awareness to say, this deal is not going to be successful. I don't want my name attached to it. Another White House official told me that they thought Vance was the wrong person for the job, but Rubio didn't really want it. And it kind of fell in Vance's lap. And as the vice president, he had to sort of play along. But what that's led to is what one former senior administration official described essentially as salesmanship. Vance having to sell something that ultimately is not successful. When we tick through this 14-point MOU, there are very little, if anything, things that they can point to that say this was a success in this moment. One really notable quote, Stephanie, I think, was from a former senior administration official who said, what Vance is doing right now, that's putting lipstick on a very ugly pig. And I think probably the most illuminating moment for how difficult this uphill battle is for Vance right now comes from over the weekend during the negotiations. We saw Vice President Vance touting progress, saying they were going to turn over a new leaf, a new relationship between the U.S. and Iran. And literally minutes later, we have a truth from President Trump that is threatening to restart military strikes again. It just shows the juxtaposition here that ultimately Vance can be the face of this thing, but it doesn't mean he has the control here.
Yeah, so Marco Rubio sidesteps this thing, noting that it's putting lipstick on a very ugly pig, and maybe more importantly, Donald Trump lets him do it. Jake, thank you for joining us. Meanwhile, today the president is going to try to turn the page on the Iran war and start refocusing on issues here at home. Today he's going to head to Pennsylvania and speak at a Mack truck factory. Of course, most Mack trucks use diesel fuel, and right now diesel costs $5 a gallon. Do you remember why? Because of the war in Iran. That is more than $1.30 higher than it was this time last year. The president tried to put a positive spin on the economy while talking about the Iran war that drove the prices up. Watch this.
If the war with Iran could cause a worldwide depression, as you noted, Mr. President, are you willing to risk economic catastrophe and strike Iran again?
Well, not the way I'm doing it. It's not going to cause depression.
Yes, but if they don't abide by the
memorandum.
Well,
nuclear weapon supersedes depression. Depression's real bad. Nuclear weapon will cause depression much more quickly. The way we're doing it, we have the opposite of a depression. We're doing really well. The numbers are incredible. The oil is at a level that nobody's ever seen before. Oil prices are way down.
And remember, the president has not shown us any evidence that they actually had a nuclear weapon and planned to use it. I got questions about it. I want to know what your questions are. Send them to us, anything from the economy to the Supreme Court, anything in between. Click on the QR code on your screen. Send us those questions. We're going to try to answer them later in the program. But for now, let's get smarter with the help of our lead off panel. Jeff Mason is here, White House and Washington correspondent for Bloomberg News. Scott MacFarlane, chief White House correspondent for Midas Touch. And Sam Stein, managing editor for The Bulwark and an MS Now political contributor. Mr. Mason, let's start with the president's Pennsylvania visit. We've heard this before. He is going to use this speech to refocus on the economy. But he doesn't stick to the script. And even if he does, he's got a great message on the economy when he's at Mar-a-Lago, when he's eating at Bobby Van's, when he's talking to Wall Street investors, to real estate developers. What is his great message on the economy at a Mack truck factory?
Well, number one, Steph, he's going to the Mack truck factory in part because it's in Pennsylvania, and he's going to a district that's pretty important to Republicans to hold on to in the midterm elections if they want to have a chance of holding on to power in the House. So that's the political background. But the broader economic background that you're referring to is the president is trying to pivot. They've pivoted or tried to pivot multiple times, and often he has sabotaged that pivot with his own words or with his own actions, most recently with regard to the Iran war. I mean, I remember towards the beginning of this year, we were told that the president would be doing a whole lot of domestic travel in the spring to talk about the economy in the run-up to the midterms. And that just hasn't happened because he's been entirely focused on this war that he started with Israel. So now that the war, at least for the moment, is over, he's trying to get back to that pivot.
Okay, Scott, here's the thing. The American people are well aware that they are paying more at the pump, specifically because of the president's war with Iran. How can you separate the two?
And it's not just the gasoline, right? I mean, you go to Pennsylvania, which, by the way, is the epicenter of the midterm elections. There are multiple competitive races in Northeast Pennsylvania alone, including where the president is today. But so gas is below $4 a gallon. He may tout that today. I expect he will. But a box of cereal still costs us $6. A stick of deodorant is costing us $10. These price issues are so pernicious and such kryptonite to incumbents who are touting the president's economic message. I think all of this is an oversimplification of the problems caused not just by Iran, but by the tariffs. This is a big issue. He can't fix, Stephanie, with one trip to Northeast Pennsylvania.
Sam, publicly, Marco Rubio has stayed quiet about the Iran deal and negotiations today. He's now starting a Middle East trip to try to sell the deal to our allies in the Gulf. Why is he doing this now? Like, are they suddenly saying, Marco, you didn't get your hands dirty. We're all in this mess. You got to do something here, buddy?
Yeah, I mean, well, he is the Secretary of State. Somewhat important role for your major diplomatic initiative. I do think it's fairly conspicuous that he has not really said anything about the MOU. But I think there's two things here. One is, there's been reported frictions within the administration over the MOU itself, with certain camps being for it and certain camps being against it. And Rubio is in the camp that is allegedly against it. Obviously, the president was for it. He's talked about how he wants to stave off a global depression because of the oil markets. But there are real legitimate criticisms from within the administration over the MOU. So that's one. And two is there is a bit of history here. It's unrelated to Iran, but there is a little bit of history here with Marco Rubio, who knows very well from firsthand experience how toxic it can be to be the face of a deal that people don't like or that your party doesn't like. So he was involved in some of the more comprehensive efforts to revamp the immigration system in the United States. And he was the salesperson on the conservative side of it. And he went on all the conservative radio, all the conservative podcasts, all the conservative TV to sell it. And it blew up. And that set him back fairly seriously from a political perspective, at least for a few years. So I think he understands that sometimes it's better to stay in the background, let this thing kind of play out a little bit. And then when you're dispatched by the president, sure, you go in and you do what you have to do. But he's very consciously, I believe, letting J.D. Vance be the front guy for this.
Given that, Scott, what does that tell you about how their roles could impact their political futures and the plans these two men have for themselves and possibly what Trump thinks of them?
Really does look like J.D. Vance is getting his fingerprints all over this, doesn't it, Stephanie? I mean, by choice or by requirement. And it does feel like a bit of a proxy battle ahead of 2028. And this could determine the trajectory of each. The politics of it aside, this is such a seminal moment for the party. You have Republicans endangered in Virginia, Michigan, Iowa, Ohio, Pennsylvania, who are now affixed to this thing. And Adam Smith, top Democrat on the House Armed Services Committee, told me, Stephanie, Republicans are trapped and stuck by this thing. They accepted the premise this war would be done in 4 to 6 weeks by air alone. And now they have ownership and equity in this. It's not just J.D. Vance.
Then what is this White House going to do? Because the House and the Senate returned. They want serious answers, Jeff. How's this going to go?
How's this going to go is a good question. I mean, we know in terms of negotiations with Congress that the president is expected to meet with Republican lawmakers on Wednesday. And this comes after, was it a few weeks ago, several weeks ago now, I guess, when Republican senators just lit into the acting Attorney General Todd Blanche about that initial plan to create this fund that ended up getting jettisoned. So there's still a large amount of resentment there, and Republicans, at least some of them in the Senate are feeling their oats a little bit in terms of standing up against the administration. Now, that's not a huge new trend, Steph, but there's at least a little bit of frustration bubbling out there that may bubble out with the president himself when he arrives on Wednesday.